What is up, everybody? We are back with another week of the Sports 2.0 Golf Show. Justin Unken here with Grant Bale.
What's
up? Last week, Wyndham Championship, not my greatest showing. I don't know that I hit a bet, but I had Russell Henley up by 4 through Friday at 14 under par. Turns out 16 under par would have won the tournament, and he managed to shoot even par on the weekend. So pretty big choke by him. Heartbreaker. I did have Kevin Kisner on my personal card, so that worked out for me money-wise. But, on the show picks, that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it was terrible. Norlander WD'd the morning before, like an hour and a half before play.
Yeah.
I think Wagner got in his spot, and then so he WD'd, took me out of that, which is fine because if you WD'd before the tournament, if you did place his bet, I think you get his money backs, which would be fine. And Henley just messed up everything because then he now messed up my margin. So everything was going well. We were going to hit the winner. We were going to hit the margin. we were going to have so much fun with Kevin Kisner and Kevin Na, and it all went to crap. Which those guys got in the playoff, and obviously we cashed those, but we were in such a good shape, and it just went down the drain.
Yeah. You had a decent week, obviously, with Kisner and Na, and Henley just screwed us on both those. But we move on.
Not to mention the broadcast that was just all over the place, and we couldn't keep up. It was terrible.
Yeah, so no forewarning. And I didn't have any forewarning that there was rain in the forecast, and they were going to jump the broadcast. They were going to start tee times like first thing in the morning. So I checked my phone at like 11, and they're like half done. Henley is not in the lead anymore. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Or he was tied for the lead, actually, I think, at that point. And there's all these guys tied at the top. I talked to you, and you're like, the broadcast is screwed up. I don't know what the hell's going on here. So what happened when you got on the TV?
So as you know, on Sundays, Saturdays also, Golf Channel has the first 2 hours. Not the first, but they're 2 hours in the afternoon, and then it switches over to NBC or CBS.
It's usually 11 to 1 or 12 to 2, depending on the tournament.
So when they started, I waited and I saw the tweet. We talked about it. I waited. 12 o'clock comes around. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna watch Russell Henley win it all for us. I'm gonna party with Russell Henley. They restart the broadcast on tape delay because of probably TV rights, but they can't show the end of the tournament, which is reasonable. So then they switch it over and play the live on CBS Sports streaming. So you could stream it on your computer. But then in the middle of the playoff, it became 2 o'clock, which was their TV time, and it switched back onto the TV. So then we got like the last hole on TV, which was kind of fun. But just the issue of not communicating that in a better way and not finding a way to get live golf on TV, when it's going on, it's insane.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. There's a 6-man playoff, which you never ever see on a tournament that like has a lot of implications as far as points going into the playoffs. I don't think it was like make or break for any of the 6 guys. It was Kevin Na, Kevin Kisner, Adam Scott, Roger Sloan, Siwoo Kim, and Brandon Grace. Interesting system of guys, quite a few winners in that group. Adam Scott choked it with a 4-footer on the first hole, and then Kiss stuffed it and made it for birdie to win. But yeah, thanks for the crappy coverage, and it was on live TV like for 5 minutes. So
it sucks that I was telling you about this, and I know there's obviously rules and contracts in place, but the Golf Channel would have had 2 hours of live coverage. Even if
the most important 2 hours.
Right. If they would have had the coverage, which I know you probably can't, but there would have been live coverage all the way up until 2 o'clock when CBS took over. So it just sucks that we had to stream it. But, if you have available laptops or internet, then you could find it. You just kind of have to surf Twitter and make sure, you're looking at the right spots. Yeah.
One interesting subplot I do want to mention real quick. Chesson Hadley, choke artist from the Congaree, shot a Sunday 62, capped with a hole-in-one get into the top 125 on the number. I think Justin Rose 3-putted the last hole to let him to fall out of it.
Yeah.
So feel-good story for him. And now we're moving on to the first actual playoff event, 125 guys. I think Louis is the only one not playing this week, so 124 guys. Points are way, way higher. You can move way up the board. Basically they make it so guys who are in the low, area with a good week could jump into the top 70, which is how many make it to next week. So it's interesting. I think the guys at the bottom have to finish top 15 probably to do that, but and probably get some help. But there's certainly some intrigue, and there's a lot of money on the line.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting the more points because it's starting to matter for that 15 million, right? Like this is kind of the point just to get here, and all the top players, like their talent kind of carries them. But now is when it starts to matter, like how am I going to put myself in position to win that 15 million? And the 15 million is very important to these top guys. That's a humongous payday. And if you remember correctly from last year, Dustin Johnson started off his run by an 11-stroke victory here. So this is a big week. The field is huge, and I think there's going to be a lot of motivation to perform well with these top guys, and I think that creates a great atmosphere for a golf weekend.
Yeah, so this first event bounces around. The first two playoff events bounce around. This is Northern Trust from course to course. It was TPC Boston last year, which DJ absolutely obliterated. Liberty National in New York is hosting this year. It's right on the coast, right by, you can see the Statue of Liberty. I think it used to be kind of like a dump, and they fixed it up and made it a golf course. I don't think it's like a player's favorite based on some stuff I've heard, but I think it's gettable as long as you keep it in the fairway. The greens are tiny. That's one major thing where I'm going to touch on this week is you got to hit a ton of greens to the best of your ability, but they're hard to hit. They're small, and scrambling is tough. The rough around the greens is really difficult. So you'll see a bunch of good iron players and short game players succeeding here. Patrick Reed was the winner in 2019 when this tournament was last here. He fits the short game, putting kind of guy. In this event in general, DJ has 2, Reed has 2, and Bryson has the other of the last 5. So we're talking elite winners. And this is the best field basically all year. I think Justin Ray tweeted that this is like the strongest field of the year. I mean, you got the top 120 players in the world, or, basically, maybe not in the world golf rankings, but basically every single top player is showing up.
Yeah, it's going to be super packed, and I wanted to mention that stuff that I talked to you about yesterday in the past winners, is that those top guys who have won, they all were playing really well when they came in. So it's going to take, not only a guy in good form and good confidence, but a really good player. The names that you just mentioned, those are all super studs. And I think we're going to have in a similar fashion type winner this Sunday.
Yeah, well, let's hop into it. I think that on the outright side for me, I'm going up top. I know that it's not the greatest value in the world, but I just think there's too many really, really good players in this field for one of them not to win. And I'm starting with Morikawa at 18-1. Whenever you go to a course that demands super, super good iron play and has really tiny greens, he's the first person I look to. He's the best iron player in the world. Sorry, JT, he's jumped you. He just won the Open. He almost got the bronze medal at the Olympics, 4th at the U.S. Open, 2nd at the Memorial. He's been on fire. And I don't see any reason it's going to stop. He played WGC, then took last week off, so he's got a little bit of rest and recuperate. His iron game is unassailable at this point. Vent's his best putting surface. So he's kind of one of those guys that doesn't really have to putt awesome to win. He just, gain 7 with his irons and hit all the fairways. There is a decent amount of fescue and water. That won't be an issue for him. He'll be in the fairway the whole week. And the one thing that I really, really love about him is there's a ton of long approach shots, like 175 to 200, 200 to 225 on this golf course. I think that's just because it's pretty long, 7,400 yards on a par 71. And there's certain holes where you have to hit it to a certain distance, make sure you're not in the fescue or whatever. And he's 4th in proximity from 175 to 200 yards. He's just the best long iron player there is. So at 18-1, I think it's a fair number. And the dude's proven that he wins golf tournaments. I mean, one thing that I was talking to you about last night is it seems like every single year you have at least one person on tour win 3 events. It's been a number of years since there's been no 3-time winners on tour. I can't imagine that's going to be the case again this year, and he's the number 1 candidate to get a 3rd win. I think he's probably going to get it one of these next 3 weeks.
I'm going to have an argument with you here in a couple minutes about who the number 1 candidate is, because he might be on the backside of my card too.
Well, yeah, I don't hate that either, but yeah.
No, I like to pick, and I want to kind of reference back to what we talked about after Morikawa won the Open, is that we talked about his numbers coming down. Look at the strength of this field, and he's at 18. 18.
That was kind of my thought. Yeah.
So it's moving, and it's moving quickly because we know how good this guy is, and when you put him in a situation where he has to hit greens and they're small, I mean, I wouldn't trust anyone more besides maybe the older version of Colin Morikawa, and that's Justin Thomas. I have him at 28. This is a mix of skill and a number play. 28-1 for a top guy is really, really good value in a field like this, especially when you have Rahm at single digits. That's crazy talk.
Yeah,
the number is a little disrespectful. His recent form isn't there, which doesn't really fit what I said earlier, but that's okay because it's good enough for JT. Hard to hit greens. He's the perfect candidate for it. He played well here in 2019, which I like. He comes in with a little bit of confidence. We're going to watch JT. We're going to root for the putts to go in, and if they do go in, we're going to have a really good ticket on Sunday.
JT was my first bet this week, and it was a no-brainer, 28-1. This is the same. I made the same argument at the Players. It was like they were offering him like 25. It's like the dude wins. He's got like 15 wins. He's like the most prolific non-DJ winner of the last 7-8 years. So it's like if you're going to put him at 25 or higher, I'm betting it every single time. I don't care how he's played coming in. The ceiling is whoop everybody's ass. So I'll take him at 28. That's a crazy number.
Yeah, and he has a win this year. It's not like he's just had some crazy.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's had a little bit up and down with some of the stuff that he got in trouble for, and the suspension, and his grandpa died. There's obviously some things that went into his year, but he has a win. He's played well in multiple big tournaments. I like him just fine coming in here, kind of prove his point. Like, hey, I'm still here. I'm still Justin Thomas. 28-1. I will have that ticket in my hand on Sunday. Hopefully.
Yeah, that's a stupid number. I hope the books pay for that, and it benefits us. My second guy is at the same number or right around there. I think I found him at 30, Daniel Berger. My thing with Berger is like he's underrated in how good he's been playing. He has not been playing a lot. 5th at the St. Jude, 8th at the Open, 7th at the U.S. Open. He really hasn't played that much, but he has been dominant on approach. 9.9. By the way. Yeah, 9.9 on approach at the WGC, 6.7 at the U.S. Open. He's gained 5 a couple other times recently. He's just been getting top 10s. Nobody's been saying anything, and they're going to lay him at 30 on a course that I think makes some sense for him. And he's a good enough putter that if he can hit enough greens, give Daniel Berger that many good birdie looks, he's eventually going to convert.
Yeah, he's been playing so well, and I like him as a candidate for a guy who can kind of jump into that next tier of like he has that ability to play with those top dudes. Does he do it consistently? No, but he's in that run right now where he absolutely can, and he absolutely has the confidence to do it. So I love it. And I'm going to piggyback off of what you said with that number, go a little bit even higher at 40 for Harris English, and this is another guy who has 2 wins on the year. Could be the candidate to have a 3rd win. That would be huge. Not only the thing you said about having a 3-time winner on tour for that year, but that's just be a huge year for him. That'd probably be his best year, probably for his career even going forward. He has 3 top 5s in his last 5 events, so his form is amazing. I think that fits the bill with what I talked about earlier. He'd be the only person to get 3 wins. His success has always been in putting and approach, which fits perfectly for what we do this week and what we pretty much do every single week, which is great. And 40 on somebody who is having a season like he is, I love it. I know the name doesn't, ring with everybody. Harris English, right? He's like the Southern guy who, you want to bet in those types of situations, but he's having just as good a year as anybody. He's playing amazing currently right now, and I'm going to take the 40, and I'm going to have it for us on hopefully coming down the stretch.
Yeah, that's about as far as I want to go down the board this week, just because I think it's going to be kind of a elite guy. But Harris has been playing so good that I think that number is really good. Value for the fact that he's been knocking on the door. He should have won the WGC. He was wire to wire in that deal and kind of choked it, same as Henley. So that's a pretty good number on a guy who's playing awesome.
There's some guys in that 40 range who do not have the talent to win this tournament. So
100%.
I'm going to take a guy who I know has at least a fighting chance to put his mark up there and put that with playing amazing with 2 wins already this year, doing something that, he'd be the only one to do it. If he wins 3, that would be huge.
He won the non-DJ portion of this event last year.
Yeah.
Remember, he was second, 11 shots behind, and still 3 shots ahead of the next person. It was not even a contest, but he's played some really good golf for the last 12 months. Top 10s. I'm going back to somewhere I have gone a lot. Xander Schauffele plus 220. I just think that he's one of those guys that if you want to just bet a top 10 every week, it'll probably end up okay for you because he finishes in the top 10 all the time. He's coming off a gold medal at the Olympics. Maybe that boosts his confidence a little. Maybe he can start closing the door on some of these wins. Right. He's kind of choked away a little. But that's not what we need this week. We just need a top 10. Of course, sets up awesome for him. He's a really, really good driver of the ball. And, of course, that kind of lets you hit driver a decent amount and it kind of need to make up some of that distance. Awesome iron player. And he's one of the best on tour in scoring from 200-plus yards out. That was a Justin Ray stat. I saw it. It was like him and Bryson. He's just a really, really good long iron player. The course asks you to hit quite a few of them. And he's an awesome putter. He's one of the best putters of the really good guys on tour, consistently good putter. Bent, he averages 0.3 gained per round on bent. That's really, really good. And even at the WGC after after Tokyo, coming over from Japan, he still gained on approach. Now he didn't play that great that week. Understandable, coming off the gold medal. I love him at plus 220.
He fits the narrative of a guy who's just ready to play well to put himself in position to win the FedEx.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think that's a goal, especially for a guy like him who is good enough, knows he can win it, and sort of kind of like a proving time for him. So I like him to fit that, playing well here, getting a bunch of those points has put him in really good position to even play again good next week, and then have a lot of strokes already started tournament for the last event. So I'm going to go with Abe Ancer for top 10. He's coming off a win, so he's obviously playing pretty well. He won the WGC in Memphis. Amazing form, like I said, when the tournament was played here in 2019, Abe got second. So that's really good for course history. He's a top ball striker. He's a top putter. He's good on bent. His long par 4 scoring is great, which are a lot of holes that are at this course. It's going to be a lot of long par 4s. You got to try to take advantage of them where other people aren't. I like Abe Ancer at a top 10, and the 360 number is really good for him because he's playing really, really, really well.
Yeah, his form is awesome. Like you mentioned earlier, guys with really good form have performed really well here, and that win was big for him. WGC is a monster win, and I mean he's putting himself in possibility of finishing in the top 5 of the FedEx Cup now. Top 20s this week. Top 20s this week. I like your guy a decent amount. I think he's going to be a bit popular, if you're going DFS, but Kokrak's pretty good.
Yeah, I like him, and I don't like a ton of the numbers that I saw for top 20s this week.
Same.
There wasn't a ton of guys, and I know when I fell across Kokrak at 250, that felt kind of appropriate to me. So it wasn't that I was trying to play chalk. I just think that matches. Like a guy who I think could finish in the top 20, 250 is, I think, appropriate. A lot of guys that were under 2 just didn't really make sense for me to bet them, especially in a field like this. He's a good bent putter. He can hit it far with his driver, and he's a really good long proximity player, which if you're going to be on those long par 4s, that matches up perfectly to hit those, like you said earlier, the 175, the 200 range. He got T12 in 2019 and when the event was played here in Jersey. He has a win in May. He's got good finishes in July, a couple top 10s. I think he's coming in just fine with confidence. He knows he can perform, on the big stage. He's already done it. He was our first winner, so why not try to cash another one before we go out this season? I think the 250 is a good number for him.
Yeah, the top 20 numbers, you're going to see my top 20 and my best bet are neither of them are like amazing value on numbers just because there wasn't a lot out there this week that I liked in the over 200 range, but Kokrak is one of the guys that I do think makes a ton of sense for this golf course. I'm going with Viktor Hovland plus 175. I think that this run of events could be like a breakout for him. He's been kind of idling along with some good finishes, nothing super great. But the underlying form is like really, really good. Like 18th in strokes gained approach over the last 36, 12th off the tee, 4th in opportunities gained, and his proximity from distance is really, really good. 6th from 175 to 200 and 9th from 200 plus. That's exactly what I'm looking for here. He's really, really good in par 5 scoring, so those holes where you need to take advantage of this week, make your birdies, he's definitely going to do that. I just think that he's like prime for a super good playoffs, jump up into the top 5, be in contention, for the FedEx Cup when it comes down to East Lake. 175 is not a terrible number for a guy who, he fits his course perfectly. There is so many shots from 175 to 225. It's kind of crazy compared to a normal week, and he's one of the best in the world at that.
Yeah, I really like him. Unfortunately, I can't say too many good things because he might be on the other end of a matchup just based on the number. I'm sorry, Vic, but we'll get to that later. I love Viktor. He's one of my favorite golfers, if not my favorite golfer to watch. He's a guy who goes out there and gives it all. He hits it super far and super hard, and he goes at it every single time. I love it. And like you said, I agree with that 100%. He fits this perfectly.
Yeah, definitely. And what were your thoughts on the matchup options this week? I didn't find a whole lot that I liked. I did find one here that I think is kind of a wrong number. What did you think of the options that we had to work with?
Yeah, it's a little tough because of how many good players in the field. So there's a lot of good player versus good player matchups out there being offered, which the books love because they always have a good player on their side.
Right.
They usually get juice. Well, they always get juice, right? So if you have juice and you have a good player, it's like double trouble. You're going to win every time. So it's hard to choose. I had a matchup on here, DJ 140 over Rahm for a while. It was something I actually considering still betting outside of this show, but it's hard because you have to bet against good players when you're playing these events. It's just more about trying to find value, and I think that's exactly what I have in my favorite bet, not necessarily here, which this is a good value also, but the one coming up I have Brooks. But this one I found was Poulter over Fitzpatrick at plus money. I thought was pretty good value also because Poulter performs well in big events. He's a really good putter, not only on vents, but on fast greens, which I mentioned to you. These greens in 2019 were rated off as fast, which I like that.
Yeah.
They should be pretty tricky. He was also good in 3-putt avoidance, which I thought was going to be pretty important this year or this week whenever I was looking at that in my model. I think that's going to be important with the guys that can hopefully, save bogeys and that kind of stuff or save pars and not get bogeys. Top 10 at WGC St. Jude, so he's coming in just fine. He had a top 10 here in 2019, which this is kind of a theme with my card. There's a lot of guys who finished really well here in 2019. And he's made 7 straight cuts. So I think he's playing just well enough. And to go against a guy like Fitzpatrick, obviously we've bet him and I like him, but he hasn't done anything good enough to scare me off. He doesn't necessarily play that well in these. It's in Jersey, but he kind of plays well in certain spots. And there's nothing really that flashes here recently that scares me away, especially when the baseline that Poulter's going to get.
Yeah, I like playing Fitzpatrick on Bermuda. He's like the best Bermuda putter in the world. He's been awesome on Bermuda, and not so much on bent. I think Poulter is kind of a good fit with the short game this course requires. I'm going to go Henley minus 110 over Brian Harman. This is as much a fade to Brian Harman as it is Henley. Henley broke our hearts last week, but obviously he's playing really, really good. His approach game is super, super good, which you're going to have to do here. He's a pretty good putter. My thing with Harman is this course is long, so it's going to ask a lot of him because he does not hit it far, and he ranks 100th in approach over the last 36 rounds. He ranks 110th in proximity from 175 to 200, 111th in greens and regulation gain, 93rd in opportunities gain. So he's not hitting greens. He's not even hitting them close to the hole. Now, if he gains 8 strokes putting, what are you going to do? Because that's a possibility with Brian Harman. But the underlying approach numbers are pretty bad. It's going to be hard for him to make a ton of birdies if his approach numbers are that bad. And Henley just has the approach game that this course asks you to do. 12th in approach over the last 36, 30th in opportunities gained. There's a solid baseline, I think, with his iron game.
In the small greens, right? So if Harman's not performing well on tour, I guess you could say tour average, right? Because he has
basically, yeah.
multiple events in those rounds or in that ranking, you even drop the green size down and you put him farther back from him because he's not going to be far enough off the tee. I like that. It's going to be hard for him to get up and down, especially when he's not hitting greens consistently.
Yeah, the only thing with him is the putter, and obviously he's a good chipper and putter. But if you're missing that many greens and you're putting yourself in tough spots all day, and you have to hit hybrids into these greens, it's going to be really a long tournament for him. So I think that's a pretty good number there.
You can only scramble so many times without bogeying. Like you eventually start bogeying holes.
Yeah, definitely. You're going back to the margins, and I see that they took your 4-1 away on the 2-stroke winner.
Yeah, they must have knew. They must have knew last week. Although they didn't, because Russell Henley was in such good position for us to hit both. It was terrible. But I will stay strong no matter what. I will not give in to that. 2 weeks in a row does not scare me one bit. I put my head down, I get the shovel out, and I keep digging. It's 1-stroke 225, 2-stroke 360. That's fine. We'll take the money. With this many good players in the field, obviously there's a chance that somebody could go bonkers. It's happened before. It happened last year. But most golf tournaments finish with 1-stroke. 2-stroke, we're going to keep betting it, and we're going to take the money and smile and thank you to the book at the end of the season.
Yeah, just keep on it. My penny stock pick this week is Brandon Grace, 2-1 for a top 30. I like him because he's in the range of players who could use a good week to, keep themselves in the hunt. He's 42nd in the FedEx Cup standings. That's safely inside the top 70, but if you had a really bad week, missed the cut, that would hurt you and make you on the hunt for the 70. And he's close enough to 30 that with a couple of good weeks here, he can get in the Tour Championships, which would be huge for him. That gets you some status going forward. What I like about Grace is he's an awesome short game player, 7th in putting over the last 36 rounds, 4th around the green. He's really, really good on par 4s, strokes gained par 4s. He's 8th. And his approach play has been pretty dang good recently. He's gained strokes on approach in 5 of his last 6 rounds. Every single one of them over 2. He gained 8.7 strokes putting last week in the Wyndham. He missed he lost in the playoff, but he's got 3 top 10s in his last 4 starts. His only miss was at the Open. It's like, all right, well, that of course correlates 0% to the Open. So I think he's a really good fit here. He's hitting enough greens. Clearly his approach play is really good, and when he misses, he can get up and down with anybody. Plus, he's got the putter really, really going right now.
Yeah, I really like it. There's a couple of the bets I wanted to mention. I don't know like the specific player that I want to mention, but you can get pretty good value on guys to miss the cut this week. If there's a couple of the good guys that you don't think really fit or just don't really have a lot of confidence in, and you just kind of want to sprinkle some money, those are good bets because the field is so strong. If they're going to miss a cut, it's going to be an event where the field is really, really strong, or unless they just play really bad, which doesn't happen that often for good players. But there was a couple in there that I liked. And I think if you look through there, just kind of pick a guy that maybe you just have like a grudge, right? Like maybe it's just kind of a fun bet for you. But I think there's some you'll never see those numbers, again, unless you're going into like a big major.
Yeah, definitely. Best bet this week. You're going against my guy Hov.
Yeah, it sucks because he's my guy too. I love Viktor Hovland, but I mean, Brooks plus money versus a young guy at Hovland. It's just really, I cannot not bet it. Brooks Koepka is 4 top 10s in his last 6 events. It's not like he's playing bad. He has 4 top 10s.
Awesome.
So it's like
he's like next on my card to be bet outright potentially.
Right, and I don't really understand it. When things start to matter more, I like Brooks more. That's kind of how this stuff works with him. Even versus Viktor, I just can't. I'm going to cover up the name. I honestly think both of these bets could cash, so I'm scared to bet them both. I think Brooks can beat him, and I think Viktor can finish in the top 10. So, like this with plus money, Brooks plus money is just something you don't find a lot, so I'm going to bet it.
Yeah, I was looking around earlier, checking some numbers, and William Hill was hanging at 28 on Brooks Koepka to win this golf tournament. So. Run, don't walk, run. Because Brooks Koepka wins golf tournaments. He particularly wins golf tournaments with awesome fields. And 28-1 is a stupid number. So I already bet it. Hopefully I I'm not betting $1 million, so it shouldn't have changed too much. But run. My best bet this week is a guy I just could not deny. I ran my model. I changed it. I ran my model again, and he hit every check mark that I wanted him to hit. I was looking at players for this week, and I couldn't find a bet that I liked, and I was like, screw it. Plus 160 in a top 20. Paul Casey. He's been the best iron player in the non-Morikawa division of the world over the last 6 weeks or so. He has not gained less than 4.1 strokes on approach in the tournament since April. He's just been awesome. He has his last 6 starts. He's got 3 top 10s and 2 other top 21 finishes. His putter has been hot and cold, to say the least, but his approach game has been absolutely on fire. He consistently gains off the tee. He's one of those guys that hits it far enough and is straight, and his around the green game is awesome. It's going to come down for the putter for him. I think this week, if he can make enough putts, I think he's got a chance to win. And what I really like is proximity 200 plus, where there is tons of shots. He is number 1 last 36. Proximity 175 to 200, 9th. 2nd in strokes gained par 5s, 20th in opportunities gained. He is hitting it close, and he's hitting it close from far away. So he fits perfectly. I don't know about a win for Paul Casey in this field. He just doesn't seem to win this type of event. But a top 20, I think, it's a no-brainer. I had to bet him in some form or fashion.
Yeah, we talked about this, off air. The long proximity was so important to us with the length and how these holes and the par 4s are set up, because even if you hit it far off the tee, you're still going to have long proximities in. That's just kind of the nature of this course. Yeah. He's number 1. I mean, what else are you going to say? I mean, he's number 1, and that's in this field. Look at the field. That's in, that's relative to the guys he's in the field with. So that speaks for itself. There's not much we can say more than that.
Yeah. One more thing I wanted to mention. So, guys are jockeying for the 70th, get into this top 70, and there's some interesting names around there. So I have the standings pulled up. Tyrrell Hatton is 63rd. I actually think he fits this golf course pretty well. He's been all over the place form-wise, but I'll probably bet him in some form or fashion just because he has massive incentive to stay inside the top 70. Bubba Watson, outside the top 70 this week. He's one of those guys that seems to always make, the top 70. Do you want to take that chance on him? Ian Poulter, guy you mentioned, outside the top 70. Joel Damon played the match with Phil this week against Harry Higgs and Keith Mitchell. Apparently he made a ton of birdies in that. Maybe he's got something to move inside the top 70. The Gim Reaper, Henrik Norlander, Doc Redman, all 86, 87, 88, all guys who have the potential, with their irons to make some noise at this week. Maybe one of them jumps up. There's some interesting names. I think if you took the time to go through it and, try to figure out which guy you like the most to jump, because some guys are going to jump up. A bunch of those guys in the 50 to 80 range are going to miss the cut, and the guys down low, or some of them are going to top 20 and jump up. So I think that there's some value in the guys with big time incentive down there.
Yeah, I think we should. I don't know how much we hit on enough, or if we did hit on enough earlier, is that if you're in the top 70 in the FedEx points after the event, that's how you make the next event. And then once you play well, then you make the playoffs, which is then staggered by strokes. So you start off with more strokes under par than the next guy, right? So that's the incentive for the really, really top guys to play well, because they want to be, 9, or I don't even know what the starting number is. What is the starting
10,
number?
I think.
Yeah, 10, right? So they want to be as close as 10 to possible. That's a guy like Xander. I think that point he's the top candidate for that. If he can get into that 7 to 10 range of those points where he's up there, in 3 weeks, that's going to be huge for him, because I think this is really important to these guys with the 15.
Another thing on that point, right before we go, DJ is 17th and Brooks is 15th. If you don't think those guys are trying to move up into the top 4 or 5 to give them a realistic shot at $15 million, you're crazy. They might be as incentivized as anyone, because they have the possibility that if they can just get themselves within, realistic catching distance of whoever's in first or second going into the East Lake, $15 million is $15 million. I don't care how much money you have. So those guys will definitely be gunning for that. Xander's 13th. Like those three guys, they have big time incentive for to have 2 awesome weeks coming up.
I know we've been kind of chasing DJ. I get it. We've lost a couple of bets on him in the last month or so, but I would be a little worried about DJ coming into events like this.
I think a few weeks ago I guaranteed that he would win an event before the season is over. I'd watch out because he has the propensity to just win tournaments. He's only won once this year. He's won like every season. He's been on tour, I think, like 13 years in a row. It's probably coming. And so, if you want to hop on him, the odds aren't great, but you could do way worse than betting DJ to win a golf tournament.
He's a guy that you could watch live too. We should mention that. He's a guy you could watch live where if he doesn't start off way at the top, you could get a decent number on him, knowing that he's in position. The numbers aren't going to be too bad for really good players because there's going to also be a lot of really good players in front of them.
Definitely.
So, and those markets are always fun to look at, especially when you're sitting there watching and you don't have much to do. Always check on those numbers. I think I listened. Kisner was like 12-1 live market coming in. So that was a huge hit. You can always find those things in events like this.
Yeah. Well, good luck, everybody. This should be a fun tournament to watch. I love the coverage because they do a pretty good job of keeping track where everybody's at, who needs a birdie or two coming in to get inside the top 125. Hopefully we won't have any rain issues that send the coverage into a frenzy on Sunday. But we'll see you next week. Peace out.
See ya.